We're live from Over the Fence Urban Farm. It's week 6 of our COVID-19 quarantine lunch and learns. We're hanging out waiting for our friends to come. Playing with the chickens. Cora, why don't you see if you can get them to go up on the logs again one last time before we start? Cora's trying to train them to get up on these pieces of log that we have lying around.
I think it's something that they're even doing.
Yeah, that might be good. Hey, Abe. We're hanging around with the chickens, just waiting for some more friends to arrive. Cora's just trying to train them to do something new. So there's our first tornado siren. Cora's trying to get these chickens to go up on these logs with her. See if she can be successful at all. Oh, she got one. Hear the church bells chiming. It's 12 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's time for Live from the Farm. We're just waiting around for a few more friends to show up and for our second tornado siren to go off, and then we're going to get started talking about compost today. Oh, there goes Tonks is up on the log. Let's see, is Luna going to follow her? Go, Luna, go! Go, Luna, go! There's our second tornado siren. Cora's providing our opening entertainment today. Hi, Panina. Welcome to everybody who's joining us. You have to keep on working on it, kid. Hello, Sydney and Joshua. We're gonna get started just as soon as our tornado siren tests go off. Hello to the Lions family and any other Red Oak friends who are joining us today. I'm going to get started checking this thermometer because Cora's off with the chickens. So we've been checking the temperature every week. This is our 6th week that we're together, and you guys can see the temperature today is about 56 degrees and the sky is pretty overcast and cloudy. I'm going to go ahead and mark in our notebook what the temperature was today. What did I say again? 56, right? Okay, let's get it open to the page. Let's see. So it was 43 the first week. It jumped up to 63, down to 48, down to 42, up to 63, and now we're at 56. So we've been on a little bit of a roller coaster with the temperature, and I was thinking that roller coaster of temperature kind of reflects the roller coaster of my mood with this whole quarantine, because I keep feeling okay about it and then not so okay about it, and okay about it and not so okay about it. And maybe if I had been charting my mood, I could see if it echoed the weather. The sunny days, maybe I was feeling more positive, and the cloudier days a little less hopeful and a little more annoyed and frustrated and cooped up. But we're outside today, and we're really lucky that, again, the rain that was supposed to come held off, so we can be outside with all of you. And you can see that there's just a lot going on the farm. Maybe if we have some time, we'll go peek under some of the covers. But there's a lot growing out there. Unfortunately, we have some very cold weather coming our way on Friday, so we had to cover up even more stuff than we normally have covered up. But we, at this time of year, because it's supposed to go down below freezing again on Friday night. So if you are like me and have planted some of your tender annual crops, whether they're vegetables or flowers or fruits, you will probably want to check that weather and think about putting a blanket on them. Just a sheet or something will help keep them cozy and warm. So today we're going to talk about compost, and we talked a little bit about compost on week 2 when we built our worm bin, and so we're going to visit the worm bin today and see what the worms are up to. And we're also going to talk about and set up a new experiment that you can try at home, as well as just talking about composting in general. So talking about composting in general first, I was reading this week that the average American makes 4.6 pounds of trash every day, or waste, we should say. Trash is only one kind of our waste. So if we think about what we throw out every day, that's our waste. Some of that is what we call organic, and some of it is inorganic. So the organic materials in our waste are all of the things that come from the natural world and can go back into the natural world. And we're going to talk a lot about that with composting today. So if you think about plants and animals, Cora's got a banana peel, that's organic waste. What other kinds of organic waste do we have here today that we're going to experiment with? Eggshells, crackers, some cut up banana peels, chicken feathers.
We're experimenting with that thing?
I don't know, we're going to talk about it. We've had this dead bird around for a while. It's a little shocking. But that's organic waste. Our bodies are organic. And when we one day die, we will become part of the compost system on Earth, part of this closed loop of life that keeps on going if we support it. So all of our organic waste, whether we're eating a banana and we have a peel or an egg and we have a shell or an apple and there's a core, all of that can go back into the earth if we compost it and prepare it to do so. But a lot of people throw those things into the trash can. So one thing we want to think about when we think about our waste, and one of the activities I'm going to suggest that people try coming out of this week, is measuring your waste and keeping track of how much waste your family produces in a day or a week, and looking at that and saying, what's organic, what can we recycle, and what is inorganic. So those are the things like plastics and metals and things that can't break down so easily. So when we think about those inorganic waste things especially, we want to think about the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And so we want to really think about those inorganic waste. We want to try to reduce our use of them. So a lot of us are shopping a lot less often than we usually do, and we're buying a lot fewer things. So we have a lot less to throw out in general. So it's a kind of nice time to do a benchmark and see how much trash are you using during the quarantine, and then as we leave the quarantine, can we keep our trash reduced and keep that inorganic waste really down low. So you see that that inorganic waste is what's going to go in the trash can. But there's stuff that we can do between making waste, that would kind of go up here, and making trash. So we can reduce our waste. We can reuse things. So we're going to talk today mostly about how we can reuse our organic matter and waste by composting. We can recycle. So composting is a type of recycling. It's recycling for our organic waste, but we can also think about how can we recycle more of our inorganic waste. So if you don't have a recycling bin yet at home where you can recycle bottles and cans and cardboard and boxes and paper, that's a good place to start. And you can also repurpose things. So there's lots of ways to reuse things around your house, around your garden. And so there's lots of ideas out there for that. We're going to talk some more now about, this was my nicer map that had the colors on it. Sorry. So reducing is the greenest we can be. Reusing is a little bit of a different type of being green. And trash, we want to try to really, the recycle is like the caution zone. We want to try not to do too much of that. It's very expensive, and there's actually new reports out all the time saying some things we put in the recycling bins don't actually get recycled. So it's important to know where your recycling goes. And then trash. So we want to try to make the least amount of trash that we can. So today we're going to talk about this full loop cycle of recycling for our organic matter. So we're going to start with different scraps, and we're going to check on the scraps that we put in the worm bin 4 weeks or a whole month ago already. And we're going to see what those are looking like. And they're getting processed. In the worm bin, they're getting processed by the worms. In a compost bin, they're going to get processed by the soil and the microorganisms and little creatures and things that are living in the soil. So I'm going to even show you, I took out this is actually from our compost bin, but it's now soil again. And I saw like a little roly-poly walking around in here. Sometimes we find worms in here. And then there's just tons and tons of little microorganisms that we can't see with our naked eye, but they're under there, they're in there. And if we had a magnifying glass or a microscope, we'd probably be able to see some of them. So those things, whether they're the worms or the microorganisms, the oxygen in the air, all helps break down our food scraps or our yard waste, our grass clippings, our leaves, and turn them into compost that we can feed to our soil, to amend our soil and make the nutrients, like eggshells, have a lot of calcium in them. But a plant can't just chomp down on eggshells. It needs to have them broken down so that the plant can absorb the calcium and the other minerals in there. So when we make the compost and then amend the soil, then we can grow more food because the plant can get that calcium and those other nutrients that it needs. And after we grow the food, we can eat it. But we rarely eat all the parts of the plant. That'll be another lesson we can talk about. That's right. So we eat roots, potatoes. But do we eat the potato leaves? No. Do we eat the potato flowers? No. Do we eat carrots or something that you can eat the roots? They're also a root, and you can eat the leaves. Some plants we eat the leaves only. Some plants we eat, like basil, we don't usually eat the roots of it. Lettuce, we eat the leaves and not usually the roots. So we usually eat the vegetables we grow, but we don't always eat the whole thing. So then we have scraps. And we can take those scraps and put them back in our compost and process them to make new compost and amend the soil and grow more food. And you can see that this is a closed loop. So it's a full loop, a cycle that goes around and around. Whereas the opposite of it is what's called a linear life cycle. And right, and a linear life cycle means it has a beginning and an end. So when I buy a pair of sneakers and I use them as much as I can and I put them in the trash can and they go to the landfill, that's where their life ends. So Anina's recommending carrot top pesto, and that is a yummy thing that I know her family really, really enjoys. And radish leaf pesto is one of my favorite alternative to basil pestos. So there are, yep, and you eat the radishes and you can eat the radish leaf. So that's an alternative. That's a way that you can reduce your food waste before you recycle your food waste in the compost. So let's go and check in on our worms and see how they're doing at breaking things down. So we're going to go back through the gate. This worm bin has been in our garage because it's been pretty cold. But we took it out today so that everybody can check in on the worms with us. So Cora's going to hold the camera for me for a minute, and I'm going to dig around in here. So first we're going to look over here in this corner down here, and you can see these are some pieces of cauliflower. Cauliflower, when I cook it, there's a lot of waste, and I just put this in last week. So you can see it still looks like chopped up cauliflower. And whether it's a worm bin or any other composting you're doing, it's good to chop things up into little pieces like this, because we looked at those worms and they really do not have very big mouths, do they? So in order for them to get to start digesting this, it's good for us to break it down for them. I've even heard of people who put their food for the worms in the blender before they put it into into the worm bin. So I'm going to try that with this new worm bin.
I saw a worm.
So you can see there's some worms in here in the newspaper, and they're going to eat their way up. When you turn the camera upside down, then everybody is getting upside down, so be careful. So that's just like last week's food, but I think over here, I was digging around. Look at the camera so that you can see and make sure it's in focus, because if you get too close, then people can't actually see. So we're going to go back down in the worm bin. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. We're going to hold it right here. All right. Now here is where we put food that first week, and we had some dinner leftovers. I don't remember exactly what they were, but you can see that they're really getting broken down here now. So there's nothing really recognizable.
It kind of looks like quinoa.
You think it might have been quinoa? I'm not really sure.
No, I'm saying it looks like quinoa.
Yeah, it does look like quinoa now. But you can see that there's a ton of worms over here near those scraps from that first day, and they are working through it. They are really cute. So we'll pick a few up. Oops.
It was just a cancer.
All right. So we've got all our worms, and they're really happily eating. Look, that one looks like a little baby worm.
Tiny baby worm.
Make sure it doesn't get out of
I said there might be baby worms, and I was correct.
You were correct. The next time we do a worm session, we'll have to take this apart and look for some cocoons. And find
Really?
the baby.
Worms live in cocoons? That's weird.
Okay, so that's our check-in on our worm bin, and you can see that they're really breaking some of that stuff down that we put a month ago. It feels very close. Is it out of focus? Okay. Now we're going to go back, and we're going to set up this experiment that I was telling you about that you guys can try at home if you want. So I definitely recommend that everybody set up a compost bin if you don't have one yet. But if that's like too much of a commitment for you right now or your parents, you can try this experiment. So what we're going to do is I set up one jar in advance just so that we have an example that we're working from, and then Cora's going to help me set up some more. So you have to get soil from your garden, not from a bag of soil. Why do you think that would be? Can you put this down so you'll be able to help me? What?
Because it's definitely been processed before.
So the soil in the bag's been processed, and it was in that bag that has no holes in it. So there's no worms, there's no living organisms in it. So you have to go out in your garden, outside, and dig up some soil. Like I said, this came from our compost bin, and you can see that it's broken everything down. All the food and the lawn and the leaves and everything are broken down into really nice soil. So Cora's going to go ahead and put some soil in the bottom of this jar, and we're going to basically layer in soil. If you do it over here, then anything that gets missed will land back in the bowl and you can reuse it. All right, and then she's going to take some of whatever, we have crackers. We're going to set up crackers and eggs and banana peel. So if we put it up against the wall, we'll be able to see how it breaks down. And I thought it'd be interesting to put some bigger pieces and some littler pieces, and then we can see which ones break down faster. I mean, I think we can guess that the littler pieces are going to break down faster than the bigger pieces, but I think it'll be pretty neat to watch. So, okay, go ahead and put some of the little pieces in too. And then we'll go ahead and put some more soil. So you always want to end with soil. So we could do another layer, maybe after we get off the phone with you guys, we'll do another layer of crackers and soil. But that'll be our first one. Then we've got, or our second one. Our first one was the newspaper. The second one was the crackers. Then we'll do some eggs. Now eggshells, if anyone's ever put eggshells in their garden before. Oh, is there a worm in there? Cool, let's put it in there.
It's still in there.
You can't see it, but.
See it right there?
Oh yeah, it's a teeny tiny worm. I don't know if people will be able to see it or not, but we'll leave this focus so they can try. So we're gonna put the egg shells. And if you've ever tried to put eggshells in your compost bin before, if you have one, or just in your garden, some people put them directly in their garden. We have to be really careful because in the city we have lots of critters that,
Rats.
especially the rats. But the eggshell will usually get filled up with soil and not really break down if you've ever tried that before. But we're going to go ahead and try to put a big chunk and some little chunks. So go ahead and just...
Can I put this a little bit smaller?
Sure.
Okay.
I want it pretty big, so how about just like that? And then we'll just pop the whole thing in. Okay. We're going to put some soil in that one. We'll do that after. And we're going to do some banana peel. And again, we broke the banana peel. We've got a piece of banana peel. And then we've got, goodbye, small worm, says Susan. It's not a goodbye. It's a so long. It's not sayonara.
Farewell.
It's matane. For all our Red Oak Japanese students.
Okay, that's a little too.
So we're going to put the big chunk of banana peel, and then we're going to put some little chunks of banana peel. And the lesson plans that I saw for this experiment all said to watch it for about 8 weeks, and once a week to check on it and see how it's doing. So we're going to set up something in the Kids Club notebook, and we'll try to keep track of that. And maybe in a couple weeks we'll look at it again together during one of our lunch and learns. So the final step is that after it, soil should always be the last thing. So Cora's got this one set up nicely. We can see the soil. We can see these crackers. And then afterwards you have to water them a little bit because that helps with the decomposition process. So, and it helps keep those earthworms alive and stuff. So you don't want it to be wet, but you want it to be damp. So we're gonna pour a little water from our watering can now, but then the recommendation for later in the project is to use a spray bottle or something that will moisten things but not make them totally wet. And then the final thing is that you should not put lids on here because the process of composting with soil is an aerobic process. Thank you, Cora. And so it needs air to work. There are other composting systems that are anaerobic, which means they don't use air, but we're not going to talk about that today. If you're interested in it, you can send me a message, but maybe we'll try it another day. Okay, so that's our experiment. If you're going to leave it outside, put it somewhere where it's not going to get rained on. If you're going to keep it inside or outside, you really should put a cover on it. But again, not a solid lid, but like maybe a piece of cloth with a rubber band around it or something to keep out any critters that might be interested in the treats, and also just to keep it covered from other things getting inside that don't belong there. So I have a book to read today that is it's about building gardens, and it's partially about composting. So we'll see some parts of composting. And this is a book that our friend Joni, who was here with us 2 weeks ago for Earth Day, shared, and she said, you have to read this book to the Lunch and Learn people because it's such a great story about compost. So it's based on the song Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and I'm sure all of you know that song, and it's called E-I-E-I-O, How Old MacDonald Got His Farm, with a little help from a hen. And this story really resembles the way we started our farm in many ways. So you can see this is not a very dense city, but certainly like houses are pretty close together, and they have backyards that everybody pretty much is growing grass. And here's MacDonald mowing his lawn. Old MacDonald had a house, E-I-E-I-O. Around that house there was a yard that he had to mow. Mow, 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 mow. Now, I do not like to mow the lawn. I don't know how many of your parents or if you know anybody who likes to mow the lawn, but me and my husband do not like to mow the lawn. So making the farm in our backyard was partially to get rid of the lawn, as much as we also really wanted to grow food. MacDonald said, I love my yard, but mowing the grass is mighty hard. So off he went to get a goat. A goat The goat just nibbled at the edges, and then she ate MacDonald's hedges. Ah, this neighbor was not very pleased. Soon the plot began to thicken. Old MacDonald got a chicken. E-I-E-I-O. Not your average bird was she, but the smartest hen in history. Let's see, inside of her hat, here's what it looks like inside of her hat. She has a pot in there that's growing this flower. And she's got papers under her arms. And the papers under her arms are diplomas and a resume and blueprints and a membership card to Mensa, the organization of smart people. And here in her suitcase, she has various instruments and books and things to help her work. Very smart hen. Cheer up, Mac, said the little red hen. You'll never mow the lawn again. Join me in a garden caper. Cover up this grass with paper, layer cardboard, and then add dirt. So this is, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of a lasagna garden, but you've probably heard of lasagna, and maybe you've eaten it, and you know that it comes in layers. So one way that you can start a garden if you don't have one is what's called lasagna gardening or sheet mulch gardening. And there was actually an article in the New York Times business section this weekend about this. So everybody is thinking more and more about gardening and how to do it and how to start without a lot of work. And a lasagna bed is the easiest way to do that. So Mac tossed in not just the paper and the cardboard and the dirt, but his socks and his shirt. What do you think those were made out of? Wool or cotton, which we were just talking about, are organic materials, so they will break down. The rain poured down and made a flood. MacDonald's yard was mired in mud. Oh no. This does not look good. The neighbors watched from the alley and then they held a protest rally. Neighborhood mud watch. Water lawns, not, I don't know what that says. Mud. A lawn in every yard. Change is bad. No more mud. We love lawns. Our block is eroding. They do not like the look of this mud pit that he's building. The little red hen got wet and wetter. Garbage, she cheeped. Garbage will make things better. Things could not get worse, groaned Mac, and he flung his food scraps out back. You think that made his neighbors happy? Now he's got a mud pit filled with garbage. Oops, these pages are sticking together. And when the mud had turned to goop, the little red hen atop her coop clucked, "Who will help me find some?"
Seeds.
Rhymes with coop.
Oh.
Good for your garden. Poop. Who will help me find some poop? So old MacDonald got a horse. E-I-E-I-O. And the horse made lots of manure that attracted lots of flies and made his neighbors even more mad. Now their signs say, stink, stink, stink. Stink, stank, stunk.
MacDonald.
Grass smells better. But look who's coming to the party now in the poop.
Look.
Lots of worms.
Cheese MacDonald.
Come here often, says one to the other. I'm your other end, noodle brain. It's the same worm talking to himself. You remember in that story we read about the diary of the worm, when the worm said to his sister, "You can look all in the mirror all you want, but your face is still gonna look like your butt." That's what this is all about. Chez MacDonald, le hotel et le restaurant. So here is the house of MacDonald. It's a hotel and a restaurant. When the neighbors yelled, "We hate that smell," Mac and the hen built a worm hotel. In no time flat, those squirmy eaters turned out compost, sweet and sweeter. Gone was the grass, gone were the weeds. Old MacDonald ordered some seeds. You can see he built some boxes. And he's putting out all his signs. He's growing watermelon and tomatoes and carrots and beets, maybe?
Only 2 people now don't want it.
And then there's 2 neighbors, like Cora said, and they're still saying, this is still weird. But there's fewer people complaining, aren't there?
Yeah, because the kids haven't come.
The worms churned, the sun beat down, and magic happened underground. Leaves burst out and flowers too. Yellow, orange, purple, and blue.
The one guy is the only one now who doesn't want it.
Here's the one protester left that Cora saw. The vegetables so plump and sweet that Mac had more than he could eat. He milked the goat and made some cheese. He traded eggs for a hive of bees. Cora's fixated on this protester. Now he's got his still underlined, huh? This is still weird, but he's the only one left, and everybody else is very excited to share this bounty with MacDonald.
I hurt carrots.
He milked the goat and made some cheese. He traded eggs for a hive of bees. The bees made honey, and Mac made money. And the neighbors said, Mac sure is smart, as they bought fresh food from his garden cart.
But it's not him, it's the chicken.
The hen was the smart one. Look at this beautiful farm in his backyard. Now old MacDonald has a farm. He loves it so. E-I-E-I-O. Up. Look at that. The protester has given up and he's eating some carrots. E-I-E-I-O.
His kid woke first.
Oh, is that his child, you think?
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming and talking about compost with us today, and I hope that you are inspired now to notice what waste is happening in your kitchen and what parts of it are organic and recyclable and what parts of it are not recyclable, and try to do something with that recyclable stuff. So we've talked about worm bins. You can build or buy a big compost bin for your backyard with your parents. You can try this little composting experiment that we set up. And every time that we just start paying a little more attention to how we're living and what we're throwing away and what we're reusing, we're helping to make the world a little bit of a better place. So thank you. I think we're going to take next week off because we've had 6 weeks in a row and we need some time to plan for our next sessions of this. So we're going to take next week off, but we'll see you back here hopefully in 2 weeks. So keep track on our Facebook page and other places where you might follow Over the Fence Urban Farm. And as always, we welcome your responses, your feedback, your pictures of how you're using what you're learning, notes, messages, and other appreciations. So take care, be good, find fun things to do, and keep in touch. Bye.